What's up? It's me, your boy, in a bathrobe. Oh my god, is that how people do intros for YouTube? Anyway, some of you may be wondering, how did I take something like this and turn it into something like this? So let's go over it. First off, let's discuss the software that was used. This was all written in Reason Studios, Reason Suite 11, which is a digital audio workstation. The DAW that you're using doesn't matter. Not really. They all pretty much do the same thing. So you just pick one that you're comfortable with. Reason, doesn't matter. Just has to support VSTs. That being said, pretty much everything in here is going to be a contact library of some kind. We have a piccolo, a solo oboe, a solo flute, 2 flute section, 2 oboes, and 2 clarinets. Those are all from Cinematic Studio Woodwinds. Sounds really decent. Next up, we have strings, which are mostly Cinematic Studio strings. Same company, just their string library. And there's instances of Cinematic Studio solo strings in there as well. I think I have a solo cello at one section right in there. I do have a couple of other layers that are going throughout the song. So those libraries are going to be Metropolis Arc 1's string spiccatos and the low string spiccatos. They just have a nice little bite to them, so I add those to a lot of songs just to make the arpeggios in the songs come through a little more. All of the brass is going to be also from Metropolis Arc 1. So we've got trumpets, a 3 French horns patch, bass trombones, and tubas, all from this Metropolis Arc 1 library. I do have a piano going at one point in the song just to give the arpeggios a little more kind of like attack. And that's going to be Addictive Keys by XLN Audio. And there's a synth doubling the arpeggio too. That's just Europa from Reason's stock synths. We have a couple more synth patches, a rhythmic synth bass, which is monotone bass synthesizer, then Punisher, which is another patch from Europa. Lastly, we have the percussion. The percussion is mostly Damage 2 and BBC Symphony Orchestra. So there's a couple of things that I don't have libraries for, and I just use Symphony Orchestra to kind of like fill out those things. There's like a tambourine that's going on in there at one point. Glockenspiel is from that as well, and timpani. And then all the rest of the drums are going to be from Damage 2. That's all the libraries. Let's talk about the arrangement. Cbat has like one melody. In the original song, it's mostly just like repeating the melody over and over again on slightly different instruments. So the challenge here was, how can I turn that into an orchestral piece that evolves and does things? I started the song with just a hint of the melody, with the violins playing just kind of a higher harmonic thing to provide some texture, and then the solo oboe taking that da-da-da. Solo oboes are answered by a solo alto flute that is playing it like 2 octaves down. And then for the second section, the violin ones are once again providing like a texture on the top, while the solo oboe is playing the response to that first phrase with the cello. And then I was just trying to come up with some kind of phrase that could get the cello to be playing the Cbat melody, but like down an octave. And then after that, we have the cello playing the melody with violas doing pizzicato on the melody an octave above. For the response phrase here, we have chords coming in on various woodwinds, and the horns start to play kind of light. Now, the goal with this section, besides just like making it sound neat or whatever, was to get to the actual intro of the song. So that intro starts in B, but I'm nowhere near that. It was a matter of like, how can I take that melody and make everything not have to jump too far to get to a B flat so I can start to play that. So after this last chord hits, I realized that most of the notes are only like a step away from being something in B flat major. So I just had everything sort of not resolve. It feels unresolved because B flat major is not in the scale or the key. And now that we've established that B flat major, we can go into the actual intro of the song. And I added in just a little response phrase in the higher strings just for flair. And then I just wanted to establish like a rhythm because the whole song has been not on beat. I just recorded it free time, like without a click or anything up until this point. So we establish a beat, we take Cbat's drum intro, and that's what I used. And then I wanted to be able to introduce the arpeggiated stuff. This arpeggio is just following the chords that I have outlined. The higher of these two is starting on E. The lower one's starting on a third above, but an octave below, with emphasis on the root note from the low strings. So the way I established that chord progression, all I did was find out how to play that melody on the keyboard, and then I found sections where chords could change and let the melody dictate what those chords were going to be. And it gave it sort of this weird whimsical feel. There's at least a couple of things that are not in the original key, and so that like satisfies the brain. We have E major going briefly to A minor, back to E major, C sharp minor, A major, and then we end on a C major. There's several chords in here that are not in the original key. They provide some spice, and that's fun. Then before we go into the big section, I just have a glockenspiel and a solo oboe playing that melody again, just to reintroduce it. Plus we haven't had like a rhythmic version of it with a da da da. At that point, we still have, it's just strings playing arpeggios. Double basses and cello are providing like hits along with a timpani that's going there, just to give it some like more rhythm and drive. It's about drive, it's about power. We stay hungry, we devour. Then we come to the big section. There's a little cymbal swell in there and then a big cymbal crash on the start of it as everything comes in finally. We have two flutes doing a brief little run up to the starting note of the thing, and then part of what makes this melody stand out is the number of things that I have playing it. Two flutes, two clarinets an octave down, violins one, and apparently that's it. I just wanted a little response thing to kind of like fill in the space while the note's being held out there. So we've got the oboes doing this thing leading up to that note. By itself, it doesn't sound great. You put it in the rest of the track. And it sounds fine. I like it. And then for the second part of it, we have a descending run sort of thing down. The cello are also doing a run. I don't know how realistic all this stuff is, but you put it all together in layers and apparently it sounds good and folks like it. So there we go. Sometimes it's just about, does it sound good in context? Throughout the chorus, we have French horns just filling in. Just kind of filling in that space. All of the horns are pretty much just kind of filling out space and providing body, except I think we've got the... I have lied. It's all been an elaborate fabrication. The bass trombones and the tubas are in here just hitting staccatos to kind of emphasize the rhythm a little more. So it's really just the French horns carrying like the sustained chords. Then for the second half of it, we get the trumpets joining on the melody while also playing some harmonized notes. And then at the very end, we just do one more run through of the arpeggios being played, this time on just pianos, a plucky synth, and the clarinets have joined in here. We've got some lower strings going. The basses are just filling in the low end with synth bass. And we've got the violins back on like a higher note, just providing some texture. And then at the very end, we have just the flutes playing the melody one more time, just as a final send-off. One final hit, and then it all fades out. I didn't really talk much about the percussion. The timpani's carrying a lot of the rhythmic bits. Just kind of emphasizing rhythmic bits. And then we've got the Damage 2 drums. It's a single snare drum with big hits being played on these 4 drums. We've got the toms doing like a little thing just to provide some kind of like mid-range. And then little stick clicks kind of happening up above there. We've got crash cymbals coming in. And then for the high percussion, I just have one little tambourine boy that's playing. You may notice that some of the things are kind of like a little bit, there's bits that are sloppy, but I like to leave those in there because it makes it sound more like it's real people playing it. And once you put it in with everything else, you don't even notice it's really there. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's all I really did for this Cbat thing. Mixing on the song is fairly minimal. I have everything going to buses, like a little bit of EQ on various things, mostly just cutting out rumble and stuff to make room for things. Occasionally, like if a library sounds good or if things sound good together, I don't do too much work on the mixing because I think I like the way it is. So there's like a reverb here that the strings bus and the brass bus are being sent to just to give it a little tail. The woodwinds and the piano and the plex synths are also going there. The rest of the stuff, like I tend to not put too much reverb on my synth basses. Percussion, most of the libraries already have some kind of reverb in there. If I wanted to, I could maybe put them all onto this film score reverb just to kind of get it all into one space, but I didn't find it. I liked the way that it sounded without it, and it, like, I could have just worked on the mix until I died, but didn't feel like doing that. There's a little bit of master bus compression. I usually will turn on the master compressor in Reason and just kiss it. Just like barely any movement, maybe 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction just to kind of like hold everything together. And that's about it for the mixing. It was very minimal. I threw on a little bit of OTT, like a very, very small amount onto the master, just because it kind of made the high end stand out a little more. Sometimes I like the way OTT sounds, and other times I'd leave it out entirely. And then we're going into an instance of Ozone 9. I have no shame in using the Master Assistant just to get some kind of idea. I'll usually run the Master Assistant at the loudest part of the song. It'll give me suggestions. Maybe I like them, maybe I don't, and I just tweak until I like it. Anyway, I had no real plan for like how to lay this all out. I don't do score breakdowns often. I've probably left a ton of stuff out. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll be sure to answer things. But I hope this has helped. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and thank you also to, like, I jumped up from below 300 to, I think I'm at 600 subs now just from this song. So that, gosh, that's pretty neat. That's a big jump. That's like a multiple hundreds of percentages jump. I can't math. Thank you guys so much for joining in, and hopefully there will be more silly things to come in the future. But for now, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment if you have questions or things that you want to say, if you want to yell at me, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Okay, bye!